everyone, welcome to Lawn Theory. I'm really excited to introduce you to my next guest, Tyler Panko with Oxoma. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, it's great to be here. I thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. So typically what we do is we're going to start, just get a whole picture of who you are as a human being, what makes you tick, where you were from, and then kind of get into a little bit some tips and tricks for men and women in the lawn landscape industry when it comes to health and wellness and specifically body posture and movement.
Okay. Yeah. I grew up in a small town in northeast Nebraska. We had a small herd of cattle, and we also had, funny enough, we had a lawn mowing business in the summers. So I grew up mowing a lot and also being on the farm. I loved working with my hands. I necessarily just didn't like the agricultural side of things. And I developed a passion for health and wellness, kind of like a lot of guys do. Like I would go to the grocery store and I would buy all the health and fitness magazines, mainly so I could build muscle and look good for girls, to be honest, at the time. But that got me really interested in like, well, how do you build muscle? And then it got me really interested in nutrition. So I'd read all that stuff. And so that got the ball rolling when I got into high school and starting to go into college. I was a 3-sport athlete, track, basketball, football at my small school. And I knew I liked athletics, so I started athletic training. I found out pretty fast that you don't get paid well with athletic training. You don't get treated well, and you work terrible hours. So it was like 3 strikes, and I got out of that pretty quickly. And I still knew I wanted to be in health and wellness. And so I explored physical therapy. I explored orthopedic surgery. And then eventually I worked for a physical therapist, and that I really liked it, but I just felt it was still kind of like run of the mill. Some people get what this means, but you basically go in and you get a heat pack, you get put on stem, maybe a little manual therapy, and then get shown a few exercises from this like assistant that didn't know what they were doing. And that was what everybody was getting. Everybody was like thrown into this one single thing, trying to fit the system, not trying to fit something to them, if that makes sense. And I just knew there was probably something else out there. And I went to a career fair, and the advisor for the school I'd eventually went to at Cleveland in Kansas City was like, hey, you should go check out this practice. What you're describing, this looks up your alley. And it very much was. I went in there and they were rehab chiropractors, which is what I am. Basically doing chiropractic work, physical therapy, soft tissue work, and a lot of rehab. And I was like, okay, this is up my alley. Like, this is what I want to do. And this entire time I'm still learning, like how the body moves, about strength and nutrition. And from there, I took 2 visits to my school, and then eventually signed on and went to chiropractic school, and got very lucky to have some great mentors that guided me along the way to what I do now, because it is very unique, and not very many people have heard of what we do, and that this is like out there, that this is available. But that got my journey started, and eventually to what I do now.
That's awesome. So going back a little bit then, and I'm going to pull on some threads because I learned some things I didn't know about you. So I myself grew up on a farm or ranch in Wyoming, little itty bitty one. So I can relate to where you said 80 head of cattle. We had 80 pigs, so a little different. We did pigs and a whole bunch of other stuff, horses, a lot of horses. The majority of my time in agriculture was competing in horsemanship events. And so I also know the burnout on ag and how it's hard to change an entire industry or take new ideas into the industry. So I 100% can relate with you there. But that was all in Nebraska. Where at Nebraska? What's that?
So it's about 45 minutes north of Omaha.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
In the, what is that, Beatrice?
Be in like the Blair, Nebraska area.
Gotcha.
It's a fairly kind of big town near there.
Gotcha. Yeah. The only reason I know Beatrice is my wife has a plant she supports that's up there, and then Exmark mowers are made manufactured there. So so that took you. So then you were going through high school, you got interested in it, and then you went to college, but then you went to Kansas City for college.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So interesting enough, I have a business management degree as my undergrad. So when I transitioned out of athletic training, I have a brother that is a vet. he's like, you know what, your undergrad degree doesn't matter. You just have to have the prerequisites to get to grad school. He's like, if I go back, I get a business degree just because it's one you can fall back on, and it can, maybe you'll learn a few business tips, maybe. And so I got a business management degree and then got all my prereqs to go into chiropractic school at that time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so then then when you went to the job fair, is that what brought you out to Wichita, or what eventually got you here to Wichita, Kansas?
So I went to chiro school in Kansas City. That was 4 years long. And towards the end there, I had friends that I'm still friends with to this day that were either from the Wichita area or worked in the Wichita area. So at that time, I met Keith at a dry needling seminar when I was still in school. And we kind of vibed with each other, if you want to say, and I liked what he did. So he was an option, and they reached out to me and said, hey, like, you know, we're going to be looking soon and we'd love to have you. So I loved what they had to offer at that time. And so it brought me down to Wichita after I graduated.
Yep. Ironically, so for those who are watching or listening, Keith is a mutual friend of ours that's also in the chiropractic industry. But the dry needling, that seminar that you guys went to, he came back and he had learned or got certified in that technique to where he could do it. And I had a lot of issues with my hip and knees. And that was when he allowed me to be introduced to the pain and pleasure of dry needling practices. Shoving needles into my hip and knees and then electrocuting me.
It sounds awful, doesn't it?
Does.
Yeah,
it sounds horrible.
Awful, yeah. But then you go in and it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's really not that bad, and it worked. So like with that though, and I know this is a tangent and we'll get back eventually, but so what does that actually do? So like when you're dry needling and then you're hooking up the little electric pack, is it just stimulating muscles that are in that area, or how did it solve my pain? Because it worked.
Yeah. I would say in essence, like what dry needling does is we're able to go into deeper layers to affect the tissue. And when we can be able to do that, that puts input back into the brain to either dial down stiffness, tone, whatever it is, but also it helps dial down pain receptors within it. So a big thing with dry needling is that we can have a huge effect on pain really fast, better than any other soft tissue, I think, that's out there. But also we can make an improvement on dialing down like the protective mechanisms that are happening within that. So the way I say it, explain to most patients, and this goes with any soft tissue technique, adjusting and things like that, is like, you truly do not need this. I'll frame it that way, but this is going to be a turbo boost. So either it's going to really help dial down pain so that we can start working on other things faster, or like it's going to give us a good adjunct into other things that we want to be able to do. But you don't need this, but this is a great turbo boost that's available that can help.
Yep. That's awesome. That's a great explanation. So now we'll go back. So you're back here in Wichita. You're focusing on what you're doing now. What's your biggest advice to people when it comes to kind of health and wellness? When you said just a second ago, you don't need this, I think it's obviously your profession, but do you think a lot of people's injuries are preventable? Or do you think everyone should just come to you when they hurt?
Yeah. And that's where like I transitioned my practice a few months ago into longer visits. And yes, there's a time and place for each, I think, for all models, because you'll see so many different models of physical therapy and chiropractic, and there's a time and place for everything. But the way my practice works, and this is the way I just like view the entire body, is like I want to actually teach people how to fish, that analogy. So I want to teach people like we only have one body, but if you think of it, like we do not know anything about it really. Like if you talk about like the owner's manual of your human body, not very many people like know how their body moves, and that's individual to them. So the way I like to break it down is like, hey, I want to learn about your body and the way it moves, and then teach you how to take care of yourself. And in that way, we can help prevent as much as possible, like from flare-ups and stuff like these things coming up for whatever joint issue they have going on, or musculoskeletal issue they have going on. And Not saying they won't have flare-ups, but we can help mitigate as much as possible, and they know the tools to help take care of it themselves.
Yep. I love that. And to your point too, when you said a lot of people don't really know what's going on, is it's been a long journey for me since 2014, really, when I met my wife, the health and wellness journey, and just what makes your body tick, and how important it is, because like you said, you only get one.
Yeah.
And so it's important for you to take care of that and treat it as such. But an interesting thing that I heard, I think it was a week ago, on a podcast was, when you eat, you're not actually eating food, you're processing food for the microbiome in your gut to eat.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just on surface level think that, oh, we're just eating and we're getting energy. And same with when you think about the human body and performance, is a lot of times they just think that you get up and do it, but there's things that you can do to enhance and reach peak performance out of this meat sack that we call body. So.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in the health and wellness space, I think we overcomplicate it way too much. And for the majority of people, like, we aren't elite athletes. 99% of people aren't elite athletes. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we're like, and I tell people, it's like doing the basics really well is the difference between good and great.
Yep.
If you can do the basics really well, like, you're probably, I'll put money on it, you're going to be feeling pretty good. It's just that most Americans and most humans in general throughout the world just don't do the basics very well. And they don't, because it's free, so we take it for granted, most of these things. And that leads to issues where we stop doing those things, and then we're like, okay, what do I do? And then we look for the quick fixes.
Yep. So what would you say is your baseline basics? If we were, so for our audience in the lawn landscape industry, what are the baseline basics they could be doing to take better care of their bodies?
Yeah. So those go back to the pillars of health. So I would say within that, we're going to look at movement, and then we're going to look at sleep, stress management, and then also nutrition. So if we break those down within movement, the number one thing is walking. We get benefit of, the research shows that even at 4,000 steps a day, but if you double that, at 8,000 steps a day, we see even a massive increase, like 50% reduction in all-cause mortality just from walking that much. I know everyone hears 10,000 steps, but that was just a made-up number at that time. Doesn't mean you need that, but we do see increases the more you walk. So if you don't do anything, like just walking every day can make a massive difference within movement. And then getting into strength training, I think everybody in the entire world, no matter what it is, should be strength training twice a week. Bare minimum, you can go up from there just based on that. And then we can get into intricacies of like what cardio looks like the VO2 max, like people have heard about, or zone 2 training has become popular recently. And then just within mobility and an overlapping term that I call stability, which balance, mobility, stability, I'll lump into this one, and how you can individually take care of that. Nutrition, like everyone here is like water, protein, like are you meeting your basic needs and micronutrients? And sleep, it's a big one that also gets, I guess, taken for granted. But if you aren't sleeping at least 7 to 8 hours a night, that has to be worked on. Like you're not recovering well. You're probably getting more stressed out. That can increase pain sensitivity. So that's a simple thing you start working on. And then within stress management, it's, do you actually have the ability to turn off? And can you actually relax? Because if you can't, then like you can do all these things for your health, but they're going to be either only help for a little bit of time, but if we're not looking at like that stress that's underlying and leading to these things, then we're always going to be fighting ourselves.
Yep, that's great. And so going back a little bit, I just want to help define for our audience, just breaking it down a little.
Yeah.
So when you talked about strength training twice a week, what is that? So define your definition of strength training. Is that going to the gym, picking up heavy things and putting them down, or what is your definition for that?
I think that looks different for everyone, and like what jives with them. Like sometimes like it means that we have to slowly grade these things. It doesn't mean you have to go in and deadlift 300 pounds. It doesn't have to look like that. But I think there's benefit at least starting with a full body routine twice a week. you're going to find a lot of benefit from doing that. It doesn't have to be like back and buys or leg routine. It can be just a full body routine that you can at least adhere to and be consistent with, I would say, for at least 3 months. And then we can get into like the finer details of it. But if you're not at least being consistent, then we don't need to worry about anything else. Just doing some simple twice a week training can be very beneficial. The way I break that down is there's push pull, which should be for the upper body, like a bench press, or like rows, or like a pull up, or like an overhead lift. And then we have squat, and then we have a hinge, and then we have a carry. And so if you can break it down into those buckets, as long as you're filling those buckets, you have a good workout. And there's many ways you can program that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for kind of breaking that down.
Yeah.
So with our audience specifically, and I can't speak for everyone because everyone's different, but the folks that I interact with on a daily basis for our customer base, I think they're meeting or exceeding their step goal or their total walking goal. And I would think, depending on the year, even with, they still should go to the gym at least twice a week, but there's a lot of manual physical labor, especially if you're throwing around bags of fertilizer or seed, depending on the time of year. However, one thing that I see constantly is horrible posture due to the equipment or improper use of equipment. And so, for instance, if you're thinking about, this is a zero-turn mower. Ironically, most of the seats get concaved to where they're almost at the same position, right? And they're bouncing constantly, so they're constantly loading their spine. And then when they get off and they're using hand tools, so edgers, trimmers, a weed whacker is essentially edger or trimmer, I should say. What are some ways that you think people could mitigate or exercises they should be doing to help correct for that? Because I mean, there's not a whole lot they can do. They could change their equipment and get a stand on. But what are some things that you think they could do to help unload their spine or to get the proper stretching they really need to?
Yeah. That's an awesome question. And like you said, like you can't change your job. Like your job is your job. So that's a constant. So how can we adapt your body to best fit your job? And so that will be different for everyone. For people that are into lawn mowing, the thing with posture is that your body is it's not necessarily that there's one perfect posture. There isn't. It's your body will adapt for better or worse to the posture demands you put onto it. So if you are into a sitting position for a lot of periods of time, your body is like, okay, I'm getting really good at sitting. So we get really good into that sitting posture. The problem with posture is that if you can't get in and out of certain postures, that's when it becomes an issue. So if you're flexed over all the time or in one certain position with mowing or trimming, whatever it is, and you can't get out of that posture or it feels really stiff to get out of those postures, then that means that what we call your movement variability goes down. So how many options you have to get into certain positions and stuff, that goes down, and sometimes it becomes painful to get into those positions. So for people that are like that, I like working and dialing in like what's like a simple warm up you can do, or what's something throughout your day that can express your joints in different ranges of motion than you aren't used to. That can look like just taking the joint to an opposite direction that it is within the mowing or trimming posture.
Gotcha. That's great. And so as we start looking at not the whole solution, but as we start looking at solutions for them, what is your opinion on supplementing, especially for mobility? And like I have bad knees, and so that's one of the things that I've worked on for years is how to build up the synovial fluids in my joints. And I found that through supplementing, getting that to build back up. Now, do you think it's healthy to do that warm up chiropractic visits and supplements, or where do you kind of stand on the supplements issue?
I would say going back to, unless you're doing the basics well, like you're not going to be into great anyway. So if you're not meeting basic nutritional needs, like you at least need to do that first before you even talk about supplementing.
Okay.
Because then you can go down the rabbit hole like, well, should I take this supplement? Should I take this supplement? Like you got to be basic nutrient needs with your protein, carbs, fats, and like dialing in your macros. And then we can talk about like what you should supplement. Because then that would open up just like the whole new rabbit hole of conversation.
Which is good. And so this industry is full of processed foods and high sugary foods. just because it's convenient. And so I think it's difficult, or it can seem difficult for a lot of people, especially when they're out in the field working, to think ahead. However, I always try to challenge that status quo. Every single morning. My wife and I wake up and we cook a full meal for our son before he goes to school, but then also so that we can have food and have healthier options throughout the day, just so that we can avoid some of the processed foods and get back to those pillars of health.
Yeah.
Like, am I meeting my protein intake, but then what's the quality of protein that I'm putting in my body? Are you kind of in that same camp? What you put in as fuel, or kind of what are some ideas or thoughts you have around that for people that are in the field primarily eating from gas stations?
Yes. That takes, and like in your field, it's not easy. I totally get it. Even in my field, like I forget sometimes, like today, like I forgot that I didn't have a lunch prepared. So then you're left with only options, which for me was like going to get a smoothie because I thought that was the best option I had available just to get some quick fuel. But it does take discipline to be able to at least meal prep with that stuff. And it's going to have to be at least twice a week that you're meal prepping and then freezing some meals. But I think in today's age, I don't think there are any excuses because there's so many services out there that help you with some of these healthier options. And there's YouTube out there that can give you many, many options on how to meal prep that kind of fits what you want for your diet.
Yep. No, that's great. And so with people, so we see we'll transition from food now to body. And I know you're not in all 50 states, but for people who are jacked up, right? Because I think there's people that we've gotten to a point, or they have gotten to a point where that bad posture, those poor eating decisions have just stacked up over time. And now they're in a point where they walk like a pirate when they get off of their mower or anything like that. What are some ways that they can go either to consult you with your services or nationwide seek out a way to get to a baseline so they can get at least start their journey with food and fitness and starting that?
Yeah. I would say the big things that you want to look out for is looking for a doc that's trying to help with the underlying problem that's going on. So like for you with knee issues, like looking joint by joint is what's causing extra stress to go into those knees. Like, is it the way your hips move? Is it the way your feet move? Whatever it is, because if one joint is not doing the job, then another joint has to make up for that stress that's happening. And so oftentimes when we have painful areas, it's because that area is trying to overwork due to other areas that aren't doing its job. So looking for someone that's spending time with you and actually looking at the movement faults or lifestyle faults that are happening that are causing the issue. I would say on top of that, you should never have to depend on your chiropractor, your PT, your doc for whatever. They should be leading you to be able to take care of these things yourself.
Gotcha, which is great advice. And so now we're going to move into gear. So I think this is always something, and I talked to you a little bit about your wide toe box shoes and everything. What are some things or advancements that you see in gear that people can use? And I know in this industry it's going to be a little bit hard because a lot of them are in boots, a lot of them are in steel-toed boots, which I know there are some solutions that are coming to the market. But is there any, once they get those pillars down, what are some things you think that they can continue to do, whether it's with what they wear or what they use at home, to further their health journey? Yeah,
I would say with shoes, you're exactly correct. Like we're getting to the point where like we're gonna have boots that not only are more comfortable, but also would fit like their job a lot better. So getting in a good pair of shoes can make the world of difference, especially just the feet are the first thing that interacts with the ground. And if you have to walk a lot, that's a lot of like, I guess, undue stress that could be going into your body if you aren't in the right footwear. So that does matter. And then I would say as far as tools, it's just getting into the recovery thing and going back to the basics, whatever can help you sleep better. So I think there are some things that can help with sleep and getting into deeper sleep, more REM sleep, whatever it is that can definitely help.
Yep. And so do you use anything to help track your REM sleep? Or?
Yeah, I have this little thing. This is an Aura ring.
I've got one of those too.
You do? Yes. It's awesome, isn't it?
Yep, they're great.
Yeah. I think, it's not the end all be all, but I think it gives you great data on like the quality of your sleep, especially. And also just finding patterns within your sleep. Like, oh, wow. I've went the last month only sleeping 6.5 hours. I've also noticed I'm like feeling really tight lately and really groggy. It's like, okay, I need to address this sleep issue. Maybe it's not anything else. That could be the simple fix. It's like, I just need to be able to sleep a little bit longer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've had a bunch. So I've had the Whoop strap. I have the Garmin, which does it as well, but wearing this gigantic thing to bed is not fun.
Yeah.
And then I finally settled on the Aura ring, but I love some of their new features that they've come out with specifically around stress and movement throughout the day, and then how I can correlate that specifically with the quality of sleep.
Yep.
Because I'm notoriously a horrible sleeper.
Yeah.
But I've noticed is if I've had more physical exercise, the easier it is for me to go to sleep. I also have had tremendous amounts of blood work done to realize that and almost everyone is deficient in vitamin D. In my case, I'm severely deficient in vitamin D.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone is going to know this. I do 10,000 IUs 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. That's how bad the vitamin D is. But I sleep like a baby when I'm taking it religiously, and which I'm not perfect. And so there's plenty of times when I forget to take my little pill. But so with that, with the sleep, I've seen that play a huge player into, do I even have the energy to do the physical activity the next day? And in our industry, they don't get the option of like me, I'm like, I'll skip a workout today. They have to go in the field and they have to work. And so being able to get good quality sleep, I think is gigantic. And plays a big part in overall health. Yeah,
and I think you brought up an important topic of like blood work. I think there's now services where you don't have to go to your doctor now. You can just go on the internet and order some blood work. It can be expensive, but I think getting that 1 to 2 times a year can give you a lot of insight on maybe some nutrient deficiencies that you have that could be relating a lot to your health. So going back to the basics, like it could just be these simple things that you're missing that maybe are... Like I say, like the body will always tell a story. So there's always a reason that tightness, there's always a reason for brain fog. Like, and sometimes it's not this overly complicated thing. We're just missing a single factor.
Yeah. And the way I justified the blood work is you can get super expensive blood work where you're dropping thousands of dollars, but you can go in, like you said, the internet services, you can get the baseline to where you're paying anywhere from $300 to $600.
Yeah.
And what I've justified is, if I'm going to the doctor, yes, we have insurance, but we still have deductible to meet, and we're still paying copay.
Yeah.
And if they can't accurately diagnose it, but they're not willing to run labs, then it's cheaper for you to go find the answer yourself and supplement and not have to go to the doctor at all.
Yep.
And that's been a huge mission of mine, is eliminate doctor visits.
Yes.
I mean, there's stuff you can avoid. Like I wish that there was a self-administer skin cancer service. I'd have less holes in me. But but there are some things that you can just go find out the data, get with a good consultant or doctor to interpret that data for you. Because I mean, some of it's very challenging to understand. That's how I justify blood work. It's saving me thousands of dollars on deductibles and copays.
Yes, and like I guarantee you, no matter where you live, there are doctors out there that want to help you in this. So like, the way we frame it is functional medicine. It's kind of blown up, but there's also online services that like Inside Tracker is one that's very popular, that you can just order online. They'll send you the test and then you send it back and then they'll give you the results. Again, sometimes it gets more expensive, but still it's available to you no matter what.
Yep. And the one that blew my mind and is going to be super important for this industry is environmental toxins. And so my stuff was through maxed out in almost everything, specifically related back to my time in the military, and FR clothing. And then I was a mechanic, so all the glorious chemicals that come with that. Our industry is ridden with pesticides, herbicides, and things of that nature, because it's the nature of the beast. You gotta keep the lawn looking nice for customers. And so understanding that and then mitigating your exposure. Like you're never going to be able to eliminate it completely, but how do you mitigate your exposure so that way your long-term health isn't for the short-term profit?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. And like we break it down into the body as like we're all biological human beings, and that can break down into your biochemistry and then your biomechanics. So I work a lot within the biomechanics, how your body moves. I know a little bit to dabble in the biochemistry, but it's not my expertise, but I know people that have expertise in that area. So if we get issues that pop my red flag on like biochemistry or not getting the results we need, then maybe we need to work a little bit more in the biochemistry realm, like you're talking about, and get an assessment in that area.
Yep. And so, and I think they all, once you get a better baseline, then it helps you do your portion of your field better, and then ultimately better results for the individual, because movement is key. That's the thing that I've realized that the older I get is your body is designed for a purpose.
Yeah.
And what happens is we've created objects to get in the way of you moving and you using your body. And then you're becoming, as soon as you get, and I know everyone can relate to this, because as soon as you get out of the field and you get home, you're going to be sitting down and you're going to be watching TV.
Yeah.
Just immediately just decompress, try to eliminate the stress, like you were talking about earlier, that was another thing, is how do you eliminate stress? But it's causing a whole another host of problems, because the way that you're combating stress is through a device versus going for a walk or moving and using your body.
Yes. Yeah. It all feeds back into each other.
And so are you a big proponent into stretching? And you talked a little bit about it earlier, is getting into a good pre-workout routine for people going to the field. So
I'd say pre-workout or pre-work routine. I like to say is that if we can affect joint areas, then like muscles connect into joints or over joints. So if we can be able to affect joint areas, usually the muscles will be able to do their job better. So within that, I talk about a little routine that is out of functional range conditioning. So if you want to YouTube functional range conditioning, they have some great stuff on this, and they'll have what they call CARs on there. These are joint circles where we're able to affect the joint area and produce different effects of like warming up that joint, and what I say WD-40 for the joint, or like flossing that's for your joints. So everyone knows you need to floss your teeth. Does everybody do it? No. But there is certain things that we can do for your joints to make sure they're in as great a health as that they can be. And usually joints want to be loaded, they want to be moved, and they want to go into different positions. So we have like certain different variations that we do with these joint CARs that can definitely be good as a warm up and to get you into the activity that you want to do.
That's awesome. Yep. And so we've talked about joints and your pre-work or pre-workout routine, your health and wellness and equipment. What is some new things that you're learning or new advancements in your field that you're excited about? Like what's gotten you ticking this year?
Yeah. I would say just in different ways that we can individualize like helping certain people. So I kind of went back into is that like you never want to go to like I guess a healthcare professional where they're trying to fit you into their model instead of trying to make your model fit them. And so one of the big things I'm learning is like that the relationship and the way you connect with someone matters most. So you can know everything in the world like about health and wellness, but if you aren't able to communicate that effectively and connect with that person and why that matters to them and their goals, then it doesn't even matter, because they're usually, it's going to go one ear and one out the other. So that really gets me ticking, is that I know I've been very lucky to learn a lot about how to take care of yourself and how to actually move well, but also most importantly, just be happy and love what you do. But one of the biggest things I'm learning is like how to actually communicate that to someone effectively, for they can understand it in the way that they internalize communication. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest lessons we all learn, is the communication styles and how to connect with your audience authentically, because I think there's a lot of inauthentic ways to try to relate to your audience. It's actually one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you come on, is to be able to effectively communicate to business owners that are in this field that their longevity matters more, and not just to their company or to their employees or their industry, but to their families. It's like, what are these little tips and tricks they can do so they're not putting overt amount of stress in their lives, on their bodies, on their joints, which cause them long-term pain. And communicating that effectively is, I can sit here and try to speak about what I know, but it's bringing on someone who is doing it and can communicate that well to give a desired outcome. And so I think communication skills are huge.
And I think the big thing I say is, like, most people are working really hard right now to, one, provide for their families, but also so that they can retire and live the quote unquote good life. If you aren't investing as a retirement into your health, then that's not going to go well. I mean, we see all the time, like, how many people get to the retirement age and then they can't even use that retirement to do the things they want to do and the things they love. So this health thing, like, it only declines, and you have to be able to stay on top of it and invest into your health so that you can still do the things you want to do now, but well into the future, and have those goals mapped out for you.
Yeah, that's great. I think you communicate that in a very clear and effective way, and I think hopefully it spurs people to want to take action and get on top of it. I know you're impacting change here locally. Now, completely different question, and it's a theory that I have is, I'll tell you my theory before I ask you this question. So Lawn Buddy's been around for 8 years. And I think what a lot of business owners will say is like, oh, it's been bliss. There's been nothing that's ever went wrong. We're successful with a capital S. But it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of ups and downs. And it does take a toll, and your body always keeps a score, and you pay for it in the long run. And so for me specifically, in learning how to de-stress and not just go and sit down and watch a movie, is finding hobbies, like legitimately hobbies that make my mind shut off, that is a singular focus. And so that's ironically going back to agriculture and farming. So our entire backyard is just we have chickens and bees and a massive garden and a whole bunch of different things, woodworking, and then the firearms industry. And so those are things that I can do to just like shut my brain off and focus on a singular task that isn't work and isn't family. Because I firmly believe if I can be a better individual, I can be a better husband, I can be a better father, and I can be a better employer, I can be a better leader. But it all starts with me taking care of myself. It took me a long time to realize that. And so that's a long backstory for my question is, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? What are things that make you tick as a human?
So I legitimately do love fitness. And so one of my hobbies is rucking. So if nobody knows what that is, it's basically walking with a weighted backpack on. And so I love the outdoors. I love being outside. I'm one of those people that I love when it's really hot outside. One of those psychos. But that's what that shuts my brain off. Like, I can just go walk and be in nature, and like, I just zone out, and that's kind of like my therapy in a little bit, in a sense. I love reading, and I love learning, and just learning new ways how I can be a little bit better every day too. Playing with my dog, like that's another one of my, like, how I can just like shut off is just playing with my dog. And coming home to that. And I still love mowing. Like, it's for me, and it's not a job, but like when I go mow, like, it's one of those things just like, it's very therapeutic in a sense, because you can just shut off, and I don't wear headphones or anything like that. And so I'd say those are a few of my hobbies that I love to do.
And so when you go rucking, how much weight are you throwing on your back?
Anywhere from, I started out with 30 pounds, but it depends. Usually it's around 45 to 50 pounds. So I also love rucking. And last year I rucked
and raised money for 2 nonprofits. One was Operation Resilience.
Yes.
And another one I can't remember the name of. I'm gonna be frustrated for the rest of the day that I can't remember it. But but I did the same thing. I got it's just the Go Ruck plate carrier.
Yeah.
And then every day I'd go out for 2 miles and come back, and it was great. And it's such a good exercise. That is easy to do. You're not having to run and but you're still sweating a lot. And you're still burning a lot of calories.
Yes.
So.
A new thing I found, which you might like this, is F3, which stands for Fitness, Family, Faith. I'm pretty
Taylor
sure.
Jinks.
Yes.
Do you know Taylor?
Yes, I do. They started doing rucking days. So on Tuesdays and Fridays here in town in Wichita. F3 is nationwide, so you can maybe find a group in the city you're in. But they started doing rucking on those days for an hour. And going back to like free ways, like F3 is free, and you usually can find a group, and usually it's really early in the morning before everybody's working. So that's a free way that a lot of people get involved in fitness.
Yep. And you said, so here in Wichita, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Tuesdays and Fridays.
Tuesdays and Fridays. Yeah. Is it downtown, or they're all over, right?
Yeah, they're all over. So there's a couple on the east side. I think there's one down. There's a couple on the west side. I go to the one that's by Trinity.
Gotcha. Yeah, because Taylor was telling me about that like a month ago. Yeah. He was talking about, wasn't there just a big like culminating event or something that you went out for?
Yes, in Kansas City.
Yeah,
like a couple days. I didn't go to it because I just heard about F3 and like this group, and so I didn't go to this one, but I want to go in the future.
Yep, and community is a huge thing too, and I think that's specifically with your health. It's hard to do it alone, but it's easier to do it together.
Yeah,
and so but it's also harder to find. Or it's an easier excuse to say, I don't have anyone to go with. So but groups like F3, I completely forgot that would be a good resource.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, is that you want to surround yourself with people that maybe know more about this in the fitness industry, or people that support your fitness goals, because it's going to be so hard if you're just out trying to do it on your own, or your family's not into it. Like it's hard to resist that. Yep,
for sure. And so as we're kind of rounding everything out, I've got a surprise question for you, but also before we do that, how can people get a hold of you? If they've got questions, or if they're local and they want to come talk to you about services, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is through Instagram. I would say, if you don't know me, it's Beard in Your Best Health. So Beard in Your Best Health on Instagram. You can also reach out to my email. It's tylerpanko@gmail.com, tylerpanko@gmail.com. Those would be the best ways to reach me.
Awesome. And I know you're not a dad yet, but you're a dog father.
Yes.
And so every show I ask the guest if you have a good dad joke. And I put you on the spot, and it's hard to remember a good dad joke on the spot.
Man, I do not know a good dad joke.
You don't know a good dad joke? I am
terrible at remembering jokes or movie quotes or anything like that.
Gotcha. Well, good thing for you is that I am somewhat of a connoisseur of good dad jokes. So I'll leave you with one that's easy to remember. So next time someone asks you for one, you've got one.
Okay.
Is how do you make a Kleenex dance?
I don't know.
You put a little boogie in it.
That's a pretty good dad joke.
Yep. So, and with that, I appreciate you and taking the time to come on. And if you guys have any questions, hit the man up or hit us up. We'd love to talk to you about your health and wellness journey and how that can kind of interface with our relationship with software. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.